Hey, everybody, welcome back to The Conscious Entrepreneur. Now, today we have a really special guest and a really fantastic conversation. I'm joined by Sarah Lockwood. Sarah is the founder of HiveCast, and HiveCast is the awesome podcast production company that has been working on The Conscious Entrepreneur for the last 80 plus episodes. And so Sarah probably has the distinction of being the person, maybe besides my wife, maybe besides my dad, to listen to the most episodes of The Conscious Entrepreneur. Certainly, she is the person who has given me the most editing advice and the most suggestions on how to make this podcast even more awesome. So say hi. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Alex. It's great to be here.
How else should we introduce you?
Well, I'm thrilled to be here today, and I get the honor of asking you some questions and sharing some time together to talk about the upcoming summit. It's something that, you've spent so much time building and growing, and it's coming up very soon here in May. And so I wanted to join you today to talk a little bit more about the experience of attending the conference and to learn more about kind of your vision when you founded it.
Very cool. So listeners, this is going to be a little bit different than usual. Instead of me asking the questions, I'm going to be the one fielding the questions. And just to give you a little bit of context here, Sarah is referring to the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit. Year 4 is happening in Boulder, Colorado on May 28th and 29th. It's going to be super great. We're going to get into that. But also, Sarah has been to multiple of these before herself. So not only are you someone who is in the community and has been helping out with the podcast, you've also you've been to the events, you've been to many of the other things that we put on as a group. So maybe we start there with what's your impression been? How has the Conscious Entrepreneur community and summit landed for you? And then we can take it from there.
One of the things that I noticed in attending the event, it's about 250 people. Last year, I think there were about 250 people in attendance. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit different than most of the conferences. Of course, you have, some amazing keynote speakers and amazing panel conversations, but there's also a feeling of intimacy at the conference. So you're sort of surrounded by other entrepreneurs, surely, but people who are, taking a little bit of a different spin on being at a networking event. It's not the same kind of vibe. There's a nice energy, a sense of community and conversation, and really conversations where people went deep pretty fast. So I really felt that I got to know people around me at the conference, and I've stayed in touch with many people since, simply meeting them at my table. So that's something that's a little bit different and special about the event, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that we've always tried to cultivate, is to make it special. There's so many programs out there for entrepreneurs, and there's these conferences and events and this thing and that thing and so on. And we're all used to this, just getting bombarded with the who are you and what do you do type of mm-hmm. questions, very surface level conversations. A lot of sort of forced networking. Also, for a lot of entrepreneurs, the sense that, we're the mark somehow, yeah. Right? People are chasing us around a conference room floor.
There's the sense you're trying to be sold to. Everyone you talk to is just, waiting to give you their pitch. And that is definitely not the vibe at this conference. And really, you've been the person who's envisioned this conference since the beginning 4 years ago. So this didn't happen by accident. This was all something that you've sort of created as part of your vision of a place for a conscious entrepreneur. Would you talk a little bit about, how this all started? What was the idea that, you're sitting around thinking about this, but you took action and you did it? Tell us about that experience a little bit.
Yeah, the origin story of the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit is really starts in the summer of 2021. And what was going on there was I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and I've been through things like Techstars, the accelerator program, and I'd raised money for my company, build a company. I was also a mentor pretty actively in the sort of tech startup ecosystem. And that was something I really enjoyed doing. One of the things that I noticed with the mentorship conversations that I was having, Sarah, is everyone would show up to these meetings and very, very serious and left-brained and thinking that they wanted to talk about their go-to-market strategy or their pricing or their conversions on their webpage or whatever, like, stuff like that. And then once we got into the conversation a little bit and started chatting, what I realized was what they're really all asking is, when do I start to feel okay inside? Like, I'm freaking out, I'm scared, I'm nervous. But you know what? A lot of entrepreneurs don't have the vocabulary to talk about that, right? We're not taught to do that. We're not taught to sit there and say, what's actually happening inside of me? And as a result, and this is particularly true for men, okay, right? It's also true for women, but particularly true for men, we bottle a lot of stuff up, right? We keep it inside. And that causes stress and anxiety. Fear bubbles up. It makes us less connecting with other people. For a lot of people, it then affects their relationships, or sometimes their health, or their mental well-being, or they sort of feel very detached, right? So we know that, to begin with, being an entrepreneur is a difficult job because you're out there trying to change behavior, build something cool, do something great in the universe. If you add to that the fact that you've got all this stress inside yourself that you don't know how to talk about, right, or how to release, then that can cause, even like, compounds the problem. And so what had happened back then was, I realized, oh wow, there's a lot of people, by the way, myself included, who are on this journey of like trying to do something cool, but maybe not having it all figured out. Mm-hmm. And I also realized, I really like the self-development work. I really like personal development stuff. Something I've been attracted to for a long time. Always got really energized by doing, retreats and meditations and learning from awesome people and reading cool books and stuff like that. And then the third realization was, even though I'm actually, and this kind of usually surprises people, I'm on the introverted side of the scale. I actually like hosting stuff. I like putting things together. So for my old company, we had run a bunch of in-person conferences, and I was good at it, and so on. So I'm out walking my dog one day, and I have one of these like Venn diagrams appear in front of my head, right, in front of my third eye. The Venn diagram was like, really like being an entrepreneur. I really like personal development. I really like building community and bringing people together. And it was like, okay, how sometimes when you have an idea comes across that you can't not do, right? You're like, oh, this is happening. So I was literally just like, okay, this is happening. I was out walking my dog. I was probably like 5 minutes from the house, and I'm like, okay. By the time I got home, it had started to coalesce in my mind, like what this was going to be and how this was going to work.
And you took action. So many people have a great idea and say, somebody should do this. This is a great idea. The world needs this thing, but they don't get up and do it. And you did.
Yeah, the taking action part was a big deal. So the forcing function for me, there were two forcing functions. Okay, the first one was, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to put together a summit of entrepreneurs, I have to have an awesome speaker. And I knew who I wanted to be the speaker. The person that I wanted to be the speaker is Dr. Sri Kumar Rao, who's been on this podcast before. Absolutely amazing person, tremendous insights, really thoughtful, just like such a lovely guy. He is a coach. He is a spiritual teacher. He's a businessman. Like, all this stuff comes together really, really great. And so I had him. I had him in mind, right? I was like, I need to talk to this guy. And the action that I took, the step that I took was, I found his email randomly on the internet, and I sent him an email. Hey, I'm doing this thing. It's going to be in Denver sometime in 2022. Will you come and join me here in Denver? And he replied within like an hour or something like that. So I was like, bang, okay, like, here's the first sign. The first sign is that the main guy that I wanted, he came, and he's going to join us. Awesome. The second thing I then did to sort of be a forcing function for me is, I found a venue and I just booked a date in May. And I was like, we're going to do this. And then it's like, okay, so how does the universe need to align, or what else do I need to do to make this happen in the next, whatever it was, 8 or 9 months?
Well, cheers to you. That was a big step forward, and something that, we've all benefited from. And one of the things that I love about this, and it's the conference, it's the summit, but it's also all of the events that you put together, and even the podcast really focuses on the entrepreneur inside. It's the personal journey, and it's the growth that you need to, or you don't need to, but we choose to work on ourselves and thus improve ourselves as leaders and give our businesses their best opportunity to grow to their full capacity and flourish. But it's the inside work that we focus on at the Conscious Entrepreneur, and that is very special and different. We're not here talking about, as you said, we're not talking about conversion rates or some of the technical things that often are talked about at these conferences. So that is something that people might not know about the event, and that's something that you've done every event since. So maybe talk to us about the kind of personal development content that you focus on at the summit.
The big theme is that growth starts within. We all make this assumption that for me to grow my business, I need to go build a great product, have a great market, find such and such a customer, do this thing, do that thing, which are all external. In reality, as the CEO, as the founder, you're the one who guides the company. You're the one who is going to determine how fast it grows and how big it gets. And so any constraints that you have within yourself, it could be, what's your psychology about how you approach the market? What's your psychology about bringing in great people to help you? What's your mindset about, anything that related to the business? Mm-hmm. A lot of these, what happens when you're an entrepreneur is you're at the coalface of building your business, and everything seems very urgent and very immediate. And it's how you approach things. It's sort of like the inner approach that you have to things that will determine your decisions, right? So you're going to be making decisions based on, well, what are my pre-existing thoughts? What's my mental model about this thing, right? For example, an obvious one is, should I have co-founders or not? Like, what's my mental model around control, right? Maybe my mental model around control is, I got to be the boss. I got to be in charge. It's only good if I make it good. Okay, that's one way of viewing the world. Maybe the other one is, I really value collaboration and I value other people's ideas and I get energized by having more people around me. So that's just an example of like how the psychology that you're bringing to the situation really impacts the business, right? So it's got different directions there. Same with, do I want to raise money or not? How am I going to price my product? What market am I going after? Who am I selling to? So a lot of this stuff, we're not aware of it, but it's really being driven by things in our subconscious. So stuff that we've had our entire lives, decisions that go back to when we were kids. And if we don't address that stuff, we're going to wind up on the same path, on the exact same trajectory. And like I said before, if all growth starts from within, we need to figure out how do we change the growth curve, because we all want to grow and do great things. And a lot of that stuff starts internally. So we've had a curriculum of stuff over the years, okay, including, for example, Sri Kumar Rao. What did he talk about? His talk was called "Being a Business Titan is Your Spiritual Path." Right? So meaning that all we ever do in the world is self-development. All we ever do is personal development. So the more that we can understand that, then the better off we're going to be internally and, of course, then externally. Last year we had Ryan Holiday come out, the Stoic philosopher and author, and he gave us tools on wisdom and courage and right action in order for us to grow as people. We've had Gay Hendricks come out and talk about zone of genius, so developing our zone of genius and getting out of our own ways. These are all really effective tools for us to be able to analyze and understand and figure out, where am I? And that's what's behind the word conscious in Conscious Entrepreneur. Sometimes there's a confusion. People think that, conscious is just a bunch of barefoot hippie people, and these are all like kind of, really small businesses and, stuff like that. That's not the case at all. What I mean by Conscious Entrepreneur is conscious. I'm aware. I understand where I am, who I am, where I'm going. And maybe I don't, maybe I don't fully know all the answers here, but at least I've got a plan, right? I've got a commitment to myself that working on myself is the best way forward for the business. So that's kind of how we've been weaving it through. And I just want to take it back to this theme of growth. Like, we all want to have a bigger impact in the world. We all want to amplify our message, and growing the company is the way to do that, right? If you stay small, if you stay a one-person company, a $1 million company or whatever, you're never going to have the impact that you want. So I want to give tools for entrepreneurs to be able to grow their businesses. And one of the tools that has really caught my attention is this book, 10X is Easier Than 2X. I literally have copies all over my house now. I've been giving these out to a lot of friends. And the author of this book, his name is Ben Hardy. He is coming to Boulder in May to lead a workshop on this. So he's going to lead a workshop on the psychology behind incremental thinking versus exponential thinking. That's a really big deal. That's a really big shift for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And one of the things, Alex, that I love so much that you've done is you've created these intimate conversations with leaders and thought leaders and authors and made them so accessible to us. So, Gay Hendricks, who is an amazing author, prolific, has so many important ideas. The Conscious Entrepreneur brought him into Boulder, into community with, I don't know, let's say there were 50 people in the room. Is that about right?
Yeah.
And we spent several hours listening to Gay speak. His wife was there, which was really lovely. And, we had the audience was interacting, very fluidly with him, which was really special. Even Ryan at the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit last year, we had this intimate opportunity where there was, live question and answer. So it's not just like a keynote, speech where somebody's, on stage, walks off stage, you never get a chance to interact. These are really intimate conversations. And you have something like that planned for us this year with Dr. Hardy also, right?
I do. And so what Ben Hardy's going to do is we've got him for 2 days, actually, amazingly. So both the 28th and the 29th of May. On the 28th, again, smaller format like you're talking about. We're doing a 60-person deep dive workshop into the psychology of 10X thinking.
That's amazing.
And so this is an opportunity to not just learn, so not just read the book I was just talking about, right? But then learn from him in a really intimate setting. But then even cooler is then implement the thinking by talking and interacting with everybody else who are your peers who are going to be at the conference, right? So it's one thing. I mean, I don't know about you, but I read a lot of books and I remember 1% of what I just read, and then I put it away. So in this case, we're recommending everybody reads the book ahead of time. I did an incredible podcast with him a couple of weeks ago, so we sort of prep for that. Then we've got a 3-hour deep dive with Ben Hardy on 10X thinking. And then guess what? You're going to be in a room with 50 or 60 other awesome entrepreneurs. That's your accountability group. These are the people you can bounce ideas off with, brainstorm with, and so on. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of learning there. And then he's coming back on the 29th to do a 1-hour, more typical sort of talk style.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So what this means for us is if you're serious about going from 1 million to 10 million or 2 million to 20 million, or even if you're just serious about going from 250K to 2.5 million, these are all 10X jumps. If you're serious about making those jumps in your life and in your business, you've got this opportunity to learn from the guy who literally wrote the book on this, and then surround yourself with an incredible network of peers who are all there rooting for you and want to see you succeed. Like nobody's competing here. We don't have that vibe at all, right? So it's a really collaborative, super fun vibe. And that's literally how we're going to change the trajectory of growth in our life and in our business.
I love that. Everyone who's listening should go back and listen to that podcast episode with Dr. Hardy, because it is really, really insightful in a lot of important ways. But I'm excited by the idea of getting to be in that room. And so, Alex, the way that the summit works this year is you can buy one either day, right? So you can buy the 28th or the 29th, the 28th and the 29th,
Yep.
and you can add on if you want access to that small, intimate opportunity to workshop with Dr. Hardy, right?
Yeah. So the way it works is the full day 28th is one option. So if people say, "Oh, I just want to do the full day with Ben Hardy," because we're going to do some stuff ahead of time. We're going to do some we're going to have some exercises and workshopping ahead of the time that we're spending with him. And so that's going to be a beautiful day. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the weather's good. It usually is in May. We're going to do the morning outside. So we're going to be up at the Sunrise Amphitheater above Boulder, Colorado, like incredible place. We're going to do stuff up there first. Then we're going to do the deep dive with Ben. So that's one kind of sequence, and you can sign up just for that. You can also sign up for the more traditional quote unquote summit style on the 29th. So there'll be about 250 people there, or you can do both. Now, it'll depend on your schedule and timing and all that sort of stuff, which one works for you. But the interesting thing was that Ben Hardy told me he really likes doing that back to back, that double barrel, because the people who come on day one, they usually get it, but it doesn't fully land and settle until day two when he kind of comes back and recovers some of those same topics. So he's found that that's actually the best way to get into the 10X into the 10X mindset. So this was a thing that we had learned from previous years, Sarah. We always had 2 days of summit in the past. And one of the pieces of feedback that we got was like, hey, 2 days is hard for some people to commit to, and they wanted more options to be able to do this, one or the other. And so that's why we decided to split it up this year.
Fantastic. Well, I love that people can go to the website, theconsciousentrepreneur.us.
Yep.
To get more information about the summit and to buy tickets. If there's something that you could share with people about, how you see this impacting founders and entrepreneurs, like what kind of feedback have you gotten over the years about, how this has impacted people's businesses and their personal growth?
Oh, I get notes at Christmas time with people saying, I was doing my year review and thinking about the best things that happened to me last year, and Conscious Entrepreneurs Summit was in my top 3. And so they reach out, wanted to thank me for that. Oh. Yeah, no, for real. I've gotten those. It's really, really special to hear this. Look, I'll just preface this by saying that, like with anything, you get out of this what you put into it. And so when you show up and you are open and you're looking for inspiration and you're willing to connect with other people and you want to have new ideas permeate into your brain, then you're going to get a ton out of this. And there's a lot of flavors. We've gotten a lot of feedback about what people like. I would like to think that everybody always just really appreciates all the tremendous content that I spend the entire year planning for people. And yes, they're usually like, yeah, the content was great. And what I liked even better was meeting my peers, was a conversation that I wasn't expecting, was seeing people that I didn't think also cared about this stuff in the same room, right? So that's one of the magic things about Conscious Entrepreneurs. You get there and people are like, oh, hey, so-and-so, I didn't know that you like this stuff too, right? So that happens. We had someone who reconnected with a former colleague that had been kind of awkward when this person exited the business a couple of years ago, and they both were in the same room and we were able to reconnect as humans. But for the most part, here's what happens. As entrepreneurs, we're all like hyper driven, super busy. Our minds are whirring along 24/7. And despite what all the books say, we never have the time to work on the business. We're always in the business. We're always like in the thick of it. And what Conscious Entrepreneur gives you the opportunity to do is to, first of all, just like relax around other people who are going through the same challenges you are, who have similar perspectives or experiences. So be around them and relax them, which helps you to calm down your nervous system, helps you to feel like, okay, I belong. I can take a deep breath. But then what happens is you start to interact with people and you're learning from their experiences. So many of the insights, so many of the breakthroughs that people have come because they're in this room and they're relaxed and they're around friends and, they kind of let themselves take some of the weight off. And guess what? That's when great things happen. That's when your brain that's been working on something in the subconscious suddenly says, hey, here's the idea. Or that's when you suddenly hear someone on stage say something and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I've been thinking about that for years. Right? Or you meet someone else who's doing something that inspires you to go take action. So it turns out that the magic is actually in the community. And it's in the room. And so one of the other things that's happened over the years is we get requests. People say, oh, I'm in a different time zone, or I can't travel there. Will you do this online? Will you do a online version of the summit so I can watch it? And we've always said no, because the value is being in the room. So maybe it's, shrunk our opportunity a little bit. Like we're not talking to as many people as we could, but instead, I'm so focused on making sure that in-person thing just has all the juice.
Yeah. You're delivering your vision the way you want to, and it's an in-person experience. And I totally agree. Having the experience of I walked into a room of 250 people and knew so many people. I couldn't believe how many people I knew were there that I had no idea were a part of this group. So I had the same experience where I guess birds of a feather do flock together.
I had Dave Parker, the CEO of EO, on the podcast about a month ago as well.
Yes, people should go back and listen to that episode as well. That was a really good conversation about the importance of community for entrepreneurs and founders. And, it really does speak to what you're talking about now, which is just that being in the room and being in conversation with other people who are having the same experiences that you may be having, whether they're winning or they're fighting a hard battle. There are people there in the room who can really share that experience and, and be with you,
yeah,
and offer some some insights, at least to what they had, what helped them, what they found. So those were the kinds of conversations that were happening, in my table with people that I didn't know. And it happens really fast. So I would really encourage anyone who's considering going to the event to, it's hard. Sure, of course, it's hard to clear your calendar. It's hard to step away from the business, but these are the things that really help us grow as individuals and help us be the leader that our business needs us to be.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
So
I like the way you phrase that. The business has needs from us, right? And we've got to show up and we've got to work. We've got to do the work, which sometimes means working on ourselves for a little while. There's one other preview I would love to share for the upcoming event, which is another one of our speakers is a guy by the name of Dr. Michael Freeman. He is a psychiatrist, and he is essentially the world's best known top researcher on well-being and mental health for entrepreneurs.
Okay.
So this is actually a thing, right? Like this is an area of study. He wrote a really important paper, really super fascinating read called "Are Entrepreneurs Touched with Fire?" And what Michael found was, and he's also, by the way, he's also been on this podcast. What he found was entrepreneurs are just wired differently. When you look at it as sort of normal population of non-entrepreneurs versus entrepreneurs, we are different, right? We process things differently. We take more risks. We're more creative. We also tend to have more mental health issues, more trauma, more issues in ourselves as well. So I don't think this is going to surprise a lot of entrepreneurs who've always felt maybe like the black sheep in their families, or slightly different than everyone else who's out there. It's true. Turns out it's true. And the cool thing is he has just a tremendous amount of research and work on this and what it means and what we can do about it. And so here's how it links to the theme of 10X for this year. So I already mentioned, so Ben Hardy is going to be doing a talk on how to 10X your business. And then Michael Freeman is going to be doing a talk on how entrepreneurship is an opportunity to 10X your personal growth. And so linking it back to the 10X theme and entrepreneurship, because there's nothing like entrepreneurship for like finding out where your blocks are, what your hidden assumptions are about the world, what your mental models are. And so he's going to link that together really, really powerfully. And so what this means for someone who's in the audience is, yes, we're going to get all these incredible ideas and inspiration for how to grow our business. And then we're going to link that back to things you can do yourself now in order to help increase the chances of getting there. And by the way, the side effects of this are, hopefully you stay, as an entrepreneur, you stay happy, married, sane, healthy, et cetera, as you're going out and building your business as well. So you're not totally burned out and, just a shell of a person by the time you're done 10Xing your company.
Well, that's the whole idea here, right? Is we're working less, but we're working on the things that we're best at and where we could make the biggest impact. So I love the idea of looking at that from a point of view of how we're helping our businesses grow, but then also how we're also growing as individuals, and hopefully increasing our capacity as people so that we can increase our capacity at work.
So one of the things that sometimes comes up, like I'll share one of the, in the sales world, this would be called an objection. Okay. I'll share one of the objections that I get with people.
Okay. We're going to overcome objections here.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that happens invariably is people are like, you know what, I'll get to this later. Right now I'm busy with my company. Thank you. I'll get to all this, personal growth stuff at a later stage. And what that does is that punts everything into the future, and it gets us into this thought that like, oh, eventually I'll have time to de-stress, think about this stuff more deeply, be a better person, get my act together, get my health together, whatever it is. And I've started to call that JV thinking.
Ooh.
The junior varsity team, the entrepreneurs who are not going to make it big, the entrepreneurs who are never going to reach their full potential are the ones who put this off. They say, I can do this later. I'll get to it once I have my $1 million business, once I have my $10 million business, once I have my exit, once I raise my Series A, once I raise my Series B. You see what's happening there is the goalposts constantly move and shift, right? And you never get there. And then you wonder, you say, wow, this all happened, but I don't feel good, or I'm super stressed out, or my relationship suffered, or whatever thing might have happened. So the JV team thinks that they can do this all later. They think that this is a nice to have, is another way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
The varsity team, the people who actually build really successful companies and, have their own stuff together as they do it, and therefore feel more life satisfaction, feel happier, have better relationships, and so on. They're the ones who say, that's not true. Not only that, this is an integral part of how I built my company. And so over the years, like we've had incredible entrepreneurs come on stage. Godard Abel from G2, Vlada Bortnik from Marco Polo, Anna Goodmanson from Sense8. Like these are all people who've built really, really cool companies, right? Very successful people. And you look at it and you say, wow, what's the trick? What's the thing that separates them from the people who didn't break through, who didn't get that, gigantic, success externally? The difference is they put this first. This is an incredible part of what they're doing. They don't simply sit there and say, I'll get to it eventually. I'll do it one day. That's not the mentality. They say, I've got to put my own oxygen mask on first before helping others. And if I'm not fully equipped and fully resourced as a human being, my business is going to suffer as a result. So like I said, I know it may not be the nicest framing, but I've started to think about this as the JV team versus the varsity team. And I can tell just based on the questions they're asking, like, oh, which one are you likely to fall into?
Well, it is an important thing to spend time on, and it is hard. I mean, I think it's also fair to acknowledge that it is very difficult to be away from your office for a couple of days, but this is a great investment in yourself and in the future of your business. I think it's something that I hope people will make time to be there, hopefully for both days, so that we can really fully 10x ourselves and our business. And I'm excited. I'm really excited that you've taken the time to do this again for the fourth year. I know you do a lot of work for this conference, and it must mean so much to you when it's at the end, right? When everyone's clapping and you're on stage. What is that feeling for you? Like when you look back, at the end of the conference on the 29th at 5:00, whatever time it is, how do you think you're going to feel?
It's always this amazing feeling because I can see the change like happening live. I can see people, they show up on the morning of the first day and they don't really know what to expect. And we make them do some things that they feel are different or uncomfortable or weird. And they're kind of, they're more tentative. And then by the end of day 2, like everybody's hugging and they're cheering and they're clapping and they're like, some people are crying. And so, we just like the energy just goes like through the roof. And for me personally, it's incredibly rewarding. And yeah, putting together the summit is a lot of work. And so there's times where I think, boy, it'd be really nice if I could just jump to the end here and get to the part where everyone had a great experience and then we're done with it and we're all patting each other on the back and giving out hugs. But there's a lot to do in between. And like I was saying, you get out of this what you put into it. And so if you're coming to this saying, I want to 10x my business, I want to 10x my life, I want to 10x my happiness, my abundance, my feeling of life satisfaction, and I'm willing to do the work, and I'm going to listen and take notes and pay attention and talk to people and engage and ask questions, you're going to get way more out of this than anyone else, right? And so I really encourage everyone, listen to the podcast, watch the old talks. We have dozens of old talks up on the website. Watch those, right? Get inspired. Read the books. Read Michael Freeman's paper. Read Ben Hardy's book. Like, do the things to prep yourself to get ready, because it's going to accelerate your progress through this entire thing.
And we'll get the link to the white paper, so we can put those in the show notes if you're listening. We'll make those resources available. But the book is 10x is better than 2x.
10x is easier than 2x. Yep.
Right. Easier.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And which, it's one of these things. This book is one of these things where when I first saw the title, I was like, oh, this sounds like kind of a cheesy business book. I don't know. Really? Do I really have to read this, sort of thing? But here's what happened. Like, several people in the conscious entrepreneur community had mentioned it over the course of a fairly short window to me. So I was like, okay, if this many people are talking about it, I got to try it. And then I read it, and it was one of these books where I was just like, oh God, I do that. And I was like, oh, I do that too. And I like, if you can't see me, I'm smacking myself on the forehead here. And that was the light bulb. But I was like, okay, the community needs to hear about this stuff.
I agree. This book everyone is talking about this book. And when did it come out? Do you know when it was published?
I think it came out in 2023.
Okay. So it hasn't been out that long, but man, everyone is talking about this book. I've read it. I've listened to it on Audible, I think twice. I don't have the hardback book, but I will get it at the summit, I'm sure. And
how'd it land for you?
I love this book. I think there are a lot of takeaways. If you get one or two things out of a book that you actually apply to your life, I think, it's a win. I put it in the W column. For this book, I think for me, what I have found the hardest is to figure out the answer to what do I want to cut out? Because that's what this book is really asking. I think that's one of the fundamental questions it forces you to look at, which is what should I cut out? For me, I think I have a problem where there are things that I like doing that I shouldn't be doing. So it's easy to cut out the things that you don't like to do and that you are easy to delegate. Sure, let's just make that list really fast. But what I find are things that I hold on to that I really enjoy doing, even if I'm not the best person to do them and I could delegate them to someone else. They're just, things that I kind of have a personal attachment to. So I think that has probably been one of the biggest takeaways for me with that book is, kind of trying to come to terms with where those things need to go and to make the decision and do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big one. We equate busyness with results.
Oh yeah. Busyness is not a badge of honor. It is in a lot of circles. And I think that's one of the things I also love about this group is, there's no sort of cheering for just a grind mentality.
Right.
When you're at the tables with, talking to your peers at the summit, people are really worried about you if you're having those 12-hour days or 10-hour days and you're just, you've been doing that for a year and a half. People are like, "Ooh, how's that going for you?" They're like, "How can I help?"
Yeah, we don't glorify hustle culture.
Right.
That's for sure.
Very different from a lot of entrepreneurial or CEO sort of communities where nobody's, no one's cheerleading that behavior. So, that book had a lot of great takeaways, but what we leave behind, what we cut out is probably the biggest opportunity for us to really, kind of distill our power, and make the biggest impact. And so that's what I love about that book.
Awesome. So let's wrap up. And I just want to ask you one last question.
Sure.
When you think of, because you've been to multiple of our things and events and you're an entrepreneur yourself as the founder of HiveCast, when you think about who the right person, quote unquote, is to come to Conscious Entrepreneur, who is that? What do they look like? What kind of profile? What sort of business? Who are the type of people that you think get the most out of being in the room?
Great question. Well, I don't think that it's characterized by the size of your business. I think there is an idea that people who are conscious entrepreneurs might have smaller businesses. And I don't know where that comes from because there are certainly many, many people in that room who have, massively huge businesses and have had big, big exits and are starting the next thing, really serious business people. So it's not about the size of your business. There is everything, the stage is not the characterization. I think it's really about being the type of person that is self-reflective. I don't think anyone who isn't able to look at themselves and take responsibility for themselves and have a sense of accountability to their business, to their employees, to their partners, to their community. If you don't have that feeling that you need to show up in the best possible way, I don't think that you would choose to be there or get much out of it. So I think it's really a person who understands that it is about looking inward and being self-reflective, being able to say, I can grow and change. And to your point, maybe in the point of the growth, your word for the year is growth. It's not, can I be 1% better every day, but can I make big moves? Can I make big decisions? Can I make big changes? Can I make big choices that are going to actually really impact my business and impact my life? So I think if you're that type of a person, you will get a lot out of attending this event.
Well said. Well said. Great. Well, we look forward to seeing everyone there. Sarah's going to be at Conscious Entrepreneur. I'm obviously going to be there May 28th and 29th in Boulder, Colorado. All the details you need are at consciousentrepreneur.us. Look forward to seeing you there.